Welcome to Story Chats at Inspire Romance. I am not Elizabeth Madry, your usual host. I'm Valerie Comer, and Elizabeth is unable to be with us today due to a family emergency. But I'm here with my co-host, Narelle Atkins.
Hi, everybody.
And we have Dani Pettrey here with us today to talk about her newest book, One Wrong Move. Dani combines the page-turning adrenaline of a thriller with the chemistry and happily ever after of a romance. Her novels stand out for their wicked pace, snappy dialogue, and likable characters, Publishers Weekly, gripping storylines, Romance Times book reviews, and sizzling undercurrent of romance, USA Today. She researches murder and mayhem from her home in Maryland, which thankfully is a long way from British Columbia. Thanks for being here, Dani.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be with you guys.
So let's start, as we usually do, by having you tell us a little bit about this book.
Sure. So, One Wrong Move is the first book in my Jeopardy Falls series. It features the McLeod family, who are private investigators. They were raised by con men and brought into the cons as kids. And when they got older and came to Christ, they wanted to kind of pay back what happened when they were younger. And so they do the opposite and they bust cons and scams. And the first book in the series features Christian, who is a security analyst expert. And one of the galleries, the art galleries that he has put in the system for, has a heist. And he's drawn in. He meets the insurance investigator, Andy Forster, and they're kind of thrown together. And it ends up being a string of heists that they need to solve. A bunch of riddles along the way, and they're trying to figure out who did it and survive.
And not fall in love, I'm sure.
And no, of course not. Not in romantic suspense, no. And fall in love through it all, so yes.
So I'll be honest with you, I don't really read romantic suspense. And if I do, definitely not the things that edge towards thriller. And I thought I saw the word thriller kind of in your thing. So the honest truth is I was planning to sit this episode out because I did not read your book because I like sleeping at night.
Yeah.
However, since Elizabeth's not here, I am. And so we're going to be relying a lot on Narelle, although Beth does have a question in here that I'll answer in a
Sure.
bit. So
you answer the question or ask the question?
Yeah, both, either. I don't know. However it happens. We'll just go. Narelle, do you want to go get started there?
I will. Well, I absolutely loved reading this book, Dani. Like I literally, I think I read it within 24 hours.
Oh my
I ran
goodness.
late on dinner. Like you absolutely had me from the beginning, and I'm turning the page,
Oh.
turning the page. Well, I love romantic suspense. I mean, I'm in my 20s. I spent a year, I think, where I only read romantic suspense. I do remember
Okay.
borrowing it from the library, and Harlequin Intrigue was like the book I was looking for at all the
Right.
secondhand bookshops. And I did have a massive binge on romantic suspense. And I haven't read a lot of it recently, but I've really enjoyed the ones that I have read.
Oh,
So I'm very
good.
happy that you're here, and I love the book.
Oh,
So
thank you.
let's start talking about Andy and her interesting work history. So,
Yes.
I mean, she's the insurance investigator who's assigned to investigate the art gallery heist in Jeopardy Falls. And her job is to determine if it's a genuine insurance claim or if it's a fraudulent claim by the owner. So
Yeah.
her previous career was with the FBI doing lab forensic work where she analysed and processed crime scene DNA samples. And forensic science seems to be the popular degree that everyone's doing in my kids'
Yeah.
generations. Like everyone's
Yeah.
at university, everyone wants to do forensic science and stuff. So my question is, why did Andy part ways with the FBI? And at the start of the story, so we don't give away spoilers, how does she feel about the circumstances surrounding her career change?
Sure. So her career change was a big one. It was not her choice. Something happened within the agency and she was asked to leave. And she really did not handle it well. It was really hard for her. That was kind of her life's work. And so she ended up having a friend of the family who runs an insurance agency offer her a job as an insurance investigator. So it's a brand new career for her. And her focus is to be thankful for the job she has and to do the best she can. She's determined to do the best she can. But what happened at the FBI still haunts her. And so that's really where
Yeah.
she's at in the beginning of the book.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great opening.
Oh, thank you.
Beth's question is, I love that you set this book primarily in northern New Mexico. For those who might not know, that's where Beth was born and raised
Was it
anyways.
really?
Mm.
Tell us about how you decided to do that and what sort of research you did.
Sure. Well, I
And
lived
if
in,
so, tell us.
okay, I lived in New Mexico for 7 years, and so it was home to me for high
Cool.
school and college, beginning of college, and marrying my husband. We lived there our first year of marriage. I still have family out there, and we go back to visit quite often. And I love the area. And so when I knew I was writing a new series, I decided I wanted to write one there because a lot of people aren't familiar with New Mexico, and it's such a beautiful state. There's just so much that's unique about it. And so I decided I would set one there and kind of return to the state I love. And research wise, from living there helped, having family still there helped, our visits helped. But I still had to do research on northern New Mexico because I lived in Albuquerque and then about an hour east of Albuquerque. And so northern New Mexico is several hours from where I lived. And so I kind of did research on the towns in that area. I had been skiing at a couple of the resorts up there, but the area the where things take place, it was a little bit new to me. So I did research the area, culture there, and landscape, and because New Mexico is surprising. Everybody thinks desert, and it is, but there's also
Mm.
mountains, and there's skiing, and there's waterfalls, and there's all these things people don't picture when they think of New Mexico.
So,
Yeah, I love the setting. It was gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
so is this how did you choose that? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, could this story have been in this series been set somewhere else without making a lot of changes, or how ingrained is it to
I
New
would say
Mexico?
it's pretty ingrained. It's pretty ingrained throughout the story because it's just really it's where they live, it's where they work, it's where they have their recreation time. Like everything about it kind of plays into it. The art that is stolen, that in the heist, um, is kind of tied to the area. And so I feel like to pick it up and move it someplace else would have been a big change in the story. I try to write settings as vibrant as I can,
Right.
and to be in as grained as I can. And so I hope that comes through in the story. But I feel like, yeah, that would have been hard to pick it up and move it somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, I've read a couple of books recently in New Mexico. We did an episode on
Yeah,
New Mexico, but just I've come across it a few times. Yeah, it's fascinating
yeah,
because I would never have thought there's mountains. This is the Aussie
right,
that has no idea. I would think New Mexico, kind of like Texas, kind of like
right.
Arizona. Not that I know
Yeah,
much about either. I know it's hot in Phoenix. I
it
mean,
is very
I know
hot in
it's,
Phoenix.
I've
It
been to
is.
San
I was
Antonio. It's very hot
Yeah,
there.
it is hot there. One time we were in
Yep.
the Grand Canyon and it was like 120 degrees. And yeah, we were like, this is insane. It was so insane. I think it was with the heat index, but actual temperature was like 110. And
Oh,
yeah. So New Mexico is nice. It's warm during the days and it gets cool at night, cool in the desert at night. So yeah, that was a lot of fun writing about it. And yes, I think Carrie Stewart Parks, I read one of hers that was in New Mexico, and that was so fun to read.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Narelle, can you think of another question regarding one
Oh,
of the
I can
characters'
always think of
background or
questions.
something?
So let's go to the hero whose name I've completely forgotten.
Christian.
Um, Christian. Now, how did I forget that? I just didn't write it down. You don't write something down. And I also expected Beth to be here, so I thought she'll cover off some of
Sure.
that. Yeah. So I found his background very interesting in terms of how his family of origin
Mhm.
was I don't think it's a spoil to say that his parents were
Oh,
effectively con artists. That comes out
right.
quite early in the book.
Yes.
So let's talk about Christian and what inspired you to take him on the journey he went on, so that at the start of the story he's in the place he is in terms of faith journey.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, they had such a rough upbringing. And, having been brought into the cons, To be honest, I'm not really sure where the whole concept came from. It just was an idea. We had watched a movie called Now You See Me, and it had to do with illusions and stuff. And I thought, oh, what if
Yep.
the parents were illusionists? And I thought, well, what if underneath they were cons? And then it kind of developed from there. Um, but yeah, they all do, but Christian especially is very tenderhearted, and he struggles a lot with the kind of guilt over what he did and what roles he played in things. And he's really faith-wise struggling with that too. You know, he knows he's a new creation, but really accepting that freedom that we get in Christ, he's just not there in the beginning of the book.
Yeah. And I loved how that played out in the story. And I've seen that movie you're talking about as well. And I did think of that movie when I was reading.
Did you? Okay, that's fun.
So there you go. It is fun.
Yeah.
I love it when you can read something and you accidentally come across the right interpretation rather than the wrong interpretation of where things start. Because I've got a reputation for getting things wrong in terms of what I think. So that's really cool. Yeah, I love seeing how that played out. And I mean, romantic suspense books can be hard to talk about because so much, you can't really start talking about what happens at the beginning, because then that starts spoiling what actually happens later. And if you talk about something, you're giving away, there's all those little foreshadowing things that sit in there that you can't talk about, because then you'll ruin the book for somebody else.
Right.
Who doesn't want to know about it. Although Valerie would be happy to hear about it. But I really liked the way his background played in, and the redemption arc that you brought in. I thought that was really well done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he, really needed to get to a place of restoration and redemption, and realize it's only found in the Lord. So
yeah. And then you've got Andy running a similar journey, but for a completely different reason in terms of her work and unpacking stuff. I really appreciated how her work history got unpacked in the story and how we found out what really happened. And yes, as I said, I kept turning the page and I kept turning the page because I wanted to know what happened next.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
I did very much.
That's every author's dream, right?
It is.
In 24 hours, couldn't put it down.
The pages turned themselves. I'm very good at fangirling when I love a book.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes me happy.
Well, if there's nothing else on that, then thanks very much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'd like you to tell our watchers and listeners where they can find you and what maybe you've got coming down the pipeline next.
Sure. So I can be found on my website, danipettrey.com. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. I spend a lot of time on both, and I love to connect with readers. I am working on book 2 of the Jeopardy Falls series, and and
Narelle runs out to pre-order.
Yeah, I won't say who the couple is, but I will say it's about the sister Riley, and I'm enjoying the story very much, and it's due pretty soon, so getting in deadline crunch, but it's fun seeing it kind of all come together. I'm looking forward to it. So
good.
So am I.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us at Story Chats. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments on YouTube or on our Story Chats Facebook page. Let us know if you are a fan of romantic suspense, if you're a fan of con man stories, if you're a fan of ex-FBI, whatever all those things are. You can find information about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. If you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. We'll see you next week. Meanwhile, be sure to take some time to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.